Hello, everyone, and welcome to this September 3rd webinar, Tackling Minnesota Early Education and VPK Records. My name is Rachel Cox. I am on the support to training team here at JMC. I've been with JMC about 2.5 years. If you've had questions on your Minnesota Early Education reporting or VPK reporting, you've probably talked I get to talk to a lot of people about this topic, but I am joined today by a lot of great people. We've got Carrie here with the MDE, we've got Greg, and we've got Jody. If you guys don't mind, I'll have you introduce yourselves. We'll start with Jody.
Hi, I'm Jody Schatz, and I live up in the Bringer Lakes area, and I am the NSO lead for the new school, onboarding people, and I'm also on the forms team.
Thanks, Jody. And Greg, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Sure, Greg Gilman with JMC, been here for a little over 25 years. I work mostly in state reporting. I live in Lake City, Minnesota.
All right, thanks, Greg. And our special guest, Carrie from the MDE. Carrie, do you mind saying hello to everybody?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Johnson. I am the Ed5 specialist in school finance. So I am the one that helps you learn how to be Ed5 only in Mars reporting. So thanks for having me. And I dabble in the early education area as well.
All right. Thanks, Carrie. All right, we'll kick this off. Reporting early education students in JMC office is crucial for securing funding from the Minnesota Department of Education. In Minnesota, many preschool students are enrolled in early childhood and family education or school readiness programs, which are not funded through Mars. Some programs, however, are Mars funded, such as your Voluntary PreKindergarten, your VPK, and early childhood special education. So today we're going to kind of focus on the difference between those Mars funded and non-Mars funded programs, and then how we enter students into JMC as a result of the type of program that they're in. If you have any questions as we go through the material today, go ahead and put your questions in that Q&A feature in Ring Central, and we will address questions at the end of each section throughout this webinar. We're going to start with setting up your preschool grade 0 subgroups. In JMC office, grade 0 subgroups make it easy to separate preschool programs like school readiness, early childhood and family education, and voluntary pre-kindergarten. Assign each subgroup the state-defined preschool group code on the Edit School data page to keep students tied to the right program and simplify data sharing with the state. So to start, you'll go to Minnesota Mars Edit School Data to define grade 0 subgroups in JMC office. So step 1, click the edit link next to the grade 0 subgroup you've designated for ECFE, school readiness, or VPK students. So for example, you've got your KA through KD groups here. Helpful tip, use the grade 0 subgroup EC for reporting your early childhood special education students, and leave the PK, KG, and the preschool group fields blank to avoid state reporting errors. So if you're using this EC group for your ECSE, you don't put anything in this field, and then all the way over on the right, which we'll see in a minute, you leave that one blank as well. Step 2, select preschool from the PK/KG drop-down list to indicate an EE or a VPK group. And step 3 is optional. You can enter the appropriate code in the Title I field to identify the subgroup as receiving Title I funding. And helpful tip, be sure to leave the kindergarten indicator field blank when defining preschool groups, otherwise you'll get errors in your state reporting. Step 4, select the appropriate preschool group from the preschool groups drop-down list to indicate the preschool program associated with the subgroup. So if you have EE here in your preschool group column, it identifies school readiness and early childhood family education groups for reporting. And then PA through PJ identify voluntary pre-kindergarten or those VPK groups for your state reporting. Step 5, click the update link to save your group designation or the cancel link to discard it. And then step 6, repeat those steps 1 through 5 as needed to designate all your preschool programs in your school. So we'll take a quick look here at how you would do that. So if somebody calls into me and they're like, hey, Rachel, I've got a question about my VPK, this is always the first place that I start. So I come to Minnesota, Mars, Edit School Data. And so what I'm looking for when I look at this page is I come over here to these preschool subgroups and I kind of take a look. So what this would tell me with this school here is that we've got 1, 2, 3 different VPK groups within this school. And then we have one group that we're reporting our school readiness and our ECFE through. So It's important that you have this page set up correctly, but let's go ahead and just walk through that process. So I'm going to use my KA subgroup here. I'm going to click edit. If this is in fact a VPK group, I'm going to select preschool from my drop-down list. I'm going to make sure my kindergarten indicator is blank, and then I'm going to select PA through PJ here. So that's how you would set up a VPK group. For those school readiness or ECFE students, you come in here. I'm just trying to follow my line all the way across. Same thing, you select preschool here, and then all the way down at the bottom of this list, you have EE, which indicates that it's a school readiness or ECFE group. And like I mentioned before, so EC, you want to save that for your ECSE or your special ed kiddos, and then you don't put anything, you just leave this as non-specified, and same with the preschool group over here, non-specified. So this is a great place to start as you're thinking about all the different preschool groups that you have, how you're going to assign those different groups to the preschool programs that they belong to. Do we have any questions? Anybody have any questions on setting up those grade 0 subgroups?
No questions yet.
All right. And we'll keep moving forward. And we'll talk about working with non-MARS and MARS funded programs. So first, indicating funding on a preschool student record. In Minnesota, a preschool program's funding source determines how you set up a student's record on the View Student Data page. Assign each student to the correct grade 0 subgroup, mark the record as state reportable, and indicate whether they're MARS funded. Setting this up accurately ensures your school receives the correct funding and that student data is shared smoothly with the MDE. To get started, open the View Student Data page in JMC Office. Step 1, you'll enter the student's name in the find field to begin updating their record, or for a quicker search up here, you can select grade 0 or even that specific grade 0 subgroup so that you're limiting your group of students just to that specific grade level. Step 2, select the subgroup from the kindergarten group drop-down list that matches the student's preschool program to place them in the correct early education subgroup. So if you have all of your grade 0 students and you're putting them into the different groups that they belong in, then you'll want to go ahead and select that correct group that you've specified on that View School Data page and put them in the right group that aligns with their preschool program. And fun fact, by default, the MARS checkbox on the General tab is already selected so that the student record will be included in state reporting. So you want to leave this MARS box right here checked. That allows the record to be sent to the state. Step 3, then you're going to go to the MARS tab and click the Edit button to begin updating the student's MARS record. Step 4, uncheck the Include in MARS checkbox for students who are enrolled in ECFE or school readiness, which are not MARS funded. So if I'm at my KD group here, and that was my EE group, I would click Edit on that MARS line, and then I would uncheck this Include in MARS checkbox. But helpful tip, you want to check the Include in MARS checkbox for students enrolled in VPK or ECSE. So those two programs are MARS funded, so you would leave this checkbox checked. So this just comes down to what type of program are they in. Non-MARS funded, not checked. MARS funded, it is checked. Step 5, click the Update button to save the student's MARS record or the Cancel button to discard your changes. And then Step 6, click either Save button to apply your changes or leave the page to discard them. So we can take a live look at indicating the funding on a preschool student record. So I'm going to come here to my View Student Data page, and I already have my grade 0 selected here. I've got someone who's in my KG group. Let's see if I've got someone else here. Okay, so I've got my KA student here marked, and I'm going to just open something up here in another tab. So I'm coming to Minnesota, MARS, and that Edit School Data page. I'm going to keep that open in another tab because as I'm working with my preschool students, I need to make sure that I remember which group is KA, that's a VPK group, same with KB, KC, and KD is my EE. You can print this page out, you can make yourself a little cheat sheet, but it's important that you keep these groups in mind as you're assigning students where they need to be. So I've got a KA student here. So this student is in a VPK class. First of all, I want to make sure that their MARS box is checked because this allows the record to send to the state. And then I'm going to come here to the MARS tab, Edit, And this is set up correctly. So it is a VPK student, so I want to have this included in MARS. That will allow that record to be sent. If I'm looking at a student who is in my ECFE or school readiness programs, so students in KD, because remember, my KD, that's my EE group. So for this student, I want to make sure that this checkbox is checked so that my record can send. And then I'm going to come to the MARS tab, edit. This is a non-MARS funded program. So here I'm going to uncheck this box and update. And then remember, once you've updated the student's record, you'll also want to save the overall record. So those are the two ways that you mark whether a student is in a MARS funded program or a non-MARS funded program. So just a little difference there, but do we have any questions on marking the funding source?
There are no questions.
All right. Then the next thing we'll talk about is creating early education records for ECFE and school readiness students. JMC Office makes it easy to create program records for early childhood and family education and school readiness, which are non-MARS funded programs. By entering key details such as the program name, funding source, and start date, you'll create complete records that can be shared with the Minnesota Department of Education through EdFi. So you'll go to Minnesota, Early Education, edit Student Early Education to begin creating state reportable early education records. Step 1, enter the student's name in the find field to begin creating an early education record. A helpful tip to narrow down your search for preschoolers eligible for state funding, select the appropriate subgroup for early education. So we know that the KD subgroup is our EE group, that early education group. So I can just limit to that KD group, and then I'll know that all the students within that group are going to need these early education records. Step 2, click the Add Row button to add a record for the selected student. Helpful tip, you can add multiple rows if a student participates in more than one early education program. So if you've got a student who's in ECFE and school readiness, you can create more than one record. Step 3, click the Edit button to update the early education record for the selected student. Step 4, enter the student's registration date in the registration date field, or you can click that calendar icon to select the date. Then you want to have the begin date. So registration date, begin date. Helpful tip, you can enter the actual start date of the program, not the registration date, to keep those records accurate for your reporting. Step 6 is optional. You can enter the program end date in the end date field or click the calendar icon to select it. And helpful tip, no need to fill out the reason exited field unless a student exits the program prior to its end date. Step 7, select either school readiness or ECFE from the program name drop-down list to identify which non-MARS funded program the student is enrolling in. Step 8 is optional. You can enter the service attendance hours and service membership hours. You can do that after, like at the end of the school year. Once you know those attendance counts and whatnot, then you can come back and enter those numbers at that time. Step 9, check the appropriate funding sources checkboxes to identify how the student's educational expenses will be subsidized. And then step 10, click the update button at the top of the record to save your changes, or the cancel button to discard them. All right, so we'll take a live look at creating those early education records for ECFE and school readiness students. All right, so from our homepage, I'm going to come to Minnesota, Early Education, edit Student Early Education. So again, we know our EE group, so those non-MARS funded kiddos are in my KD class. So I am going to select KD, and this student is going to need this early education record. So I'm going to click Add a Row and Edit. So I'll enter the registration date. So the date that you got on the registration paperwork that you received from parents, and then the begin date. So when does your program begin? You want to make sure that I'll go ahead and put in some dates here. All right, and then maybe we are starting next Monday. I want to make sure that I have the program name, so that's important. Is this a school readiness program? Is it ECFE? I would put that information there. I'm going to come back and do those attendance hours and membership hours once I have final counts at the end of the school year. And then you find your funding source. So this is going to be school readiness funded. And that's really about all I need to enter at this point. I would say you don't need to enter this register in person. I have found more times than not that this will throw errors when you're trying to do your Ed5 reporting if you have information here. So concentrate on the left side of this record, get that information in there, go ahead and click update. And now I've got a record for that student, and this will send when I'm doing my Ed5 reporting. All right, and you want to make sure that you have a record like this for every student who is in ECFE or school readiness. I think that's about it for making those early education records. Jody, do we have any questions?
We don't have any questions.
All right. I was anticipating we were going to get hit with a lot of questions today, but maybe we're just really thorough. I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about are some best practices for VPK reporting. With more voluntary pre-kindergarten seats available, managing student records accurately is more important than ever. This guide shares best practices and troubleshooting tips for setting up and maintaining VPK records in JMC office to support smooth data management and accurate state reporting to the MDE. So in Minnesota, MARS edit school data define one or more grade 0 subgroups such as KA through KD, we've already talked about this a little bit, as your VPK groups. You assign a separate VPK preschool grade level PA through PJ for each VPK schedule. So for example, all students in PA, maybe they attend Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8 to 2, and all students in PB would attend Tuesday, Thursday from 9 to 3. So if your district has only one schedule for all your VPK students, you can choose a single PA through PJ grade level to represent the whole program. And I'm maybe going to just double check my knowledge there with Carrie. Did I get that one right in terms of when they would use more than one of those PA through PJ groups?
Yep, you sure did.
All right, good deal. All right, the other thing that you want to make sure that you do for your VPK groups is you're going to want to set up a grade specific calendar for the VPK group. So you'll go to attendance, calendar, and days to set up a specific calendar for each grade 0 subgroup identified as the VPK group. This setup automatically calculates your attendance for students in your VPK program. And just a helpful tip here, use consistent subgroup codes across years so your attendance and your state reporting can stay aligned. So this is maybe something that's kind of new to people who've had preschool in the past, making sure that you have that calendar set up for your VPK students. Another best practice, we're going to talk about enrollment and membership for students in VPK, and sometimes they're in more than one program. So we're going to look at how we would handle that. So some students may be enrolled in only VPK, while others participate in multiple programs. So we can follow these guidelines for tracking attendance and membership hours on a student's MARS record. So if you've got a student who's in VPK only, on your MARS line, you're going to indicate 100% enrolled, and then their hours are going to be calculated by the calendar. So I've got a VPK student right here, percent enrolled, 100%. And then when you calculate your attendance days and membership days, those are going to calculate automatically from your calendar for you. If you have a student who is in VPK and early childhood special education, you're going to have two MARS lines here on the MARS tab. One for your VPK record and one for your ECSE record. You're going to manually enter attendance and membership days for both records, and then you're going to assign the overall student record up here to that VPK subgroup. So up here, your grade 0 kindergarten subgroup, you'll want that to be the VPK group. And I'm going to put Carrie on the spot one more time. Did I get that right, Carrie? So when you have a VPK student who also gets special ed services, we're going to have that 999% enrolled, and then we would manually calculate the days and attendance and membership. Is that correct? I'm not sure if I stumped Carrie or if she's still on mute. All right, well, we've maybe lost Carrie for a minute, but I know that I did email her this question, and I believe that we're right there. So you'll want to do that manual entering of the attendance days and membership days. And then if you have a student who is in VPK and ECFE, again, you'll have two MARS lines, one for your VPK record and one for your ECFE record. On your VPK MARS line, you'll indicate 100% enrolled. so that your hours are calculated from the calendar. And then you record your ECFE hours on those early education records that we just learned how to build. So that's where you would document the hours in ECFE. It's on those early education records that you fill out at Minnesota Early Education, Edit Student Early Education. And then once again, you assign the student overall up here at the top of the record to that VPK subgroup on that student record, so that their attendance is going to be calculated from that calendar. All right, and then you indicate students who aren't VPK funded. So all students in a classroom that receives VPK funding should be reported in the VPK group, even if not every student is awarded VPK funding. So if you've got a VPK classroom, you got 20 kids in that classroom, maybe only 5 of them are getting VPK funding. Every student is still marked as being in that VPK classroom. So they would all be KA if they're in that classroom. And then for students who do not, or were not awarded the funding, you just use the appropriate state aid category to indicate that they're in the VPK classroom, but they're not getting VPK funding. All right, so we can take a live look at some of these best practices for for reporting your VPK students. So I'm actually going to start, I think, on the calendar page, because that's probably one of the biggest ones. I'm going to come to attendance, calendar, days. And I've got KA as one of my VPK classrooms, so I'm going to select just that grade level here. All right, so we can see that first day of school is listed as the 2nd, but a lot of times preschool students don't start the same time as the rest of the students. So if my KA group isn't starting until September 8th, I would just mark them as having a no school day on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And if my VPK class doesn't meet every day of the week, I worked with a lot of schools who meet maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday. A lot of them will meet Monday through Thursday and don't meet on Fridays. So if that was the case, I would just come to every Friday throughout the school year and mark Fridays as a no school day. And when I do this, what you'll see here, if I come back to my edit school data page that I've been keeping open, I'm going to refresh it here. You can see that my KA group, I'm going to click on it here so that you can see the difference. You can see that their instructional days in session are less than my other groups. So as I mark the days that they're not attending school, so if they're not here on Fridays and they're not attending that first week, my instructional days in session, they're going to reduce automatically because it's going to read that from the calendar. So this allows for me to have those accurate counts by creating a calendar for my VPK students. So like I said, that's one of the biggest ones. Double checking your instructional days in session here on your edit school data page, making sure that you have your calendar configured correctly for your VPK groups. And then if you have students who are in, let me come to one of my VPK groups here. If you have students who are in VPK, and I wonder if I set one up here, it doesn't look like who also are maybe receiving those special ed services, or who are also in an ECFE classroom, because both of those things exist, you just add another row. So this, it would be how I would set up a record for a VPK only student, but if they also were in early childhood special ed, oh, I did click add a row. I would add a row and add another. Oh, it's probably because I don't have an end date. I would have to calculate attendance. Let me check this other student here. This one might be easier. There we go. So the problem that I had is I hadn't calculated attendance. If I had done that, then I would have been able to add another row for that student. But on my second row here, I would mark that this student, mark the grade level here as EC, make sure that I have 999 and 0. I'll have to manually enter attendance days and membership days, and you enter that in hours. So just making sure that all of the groups that the student participates in, that they're accounted for with their own MARS line. So that's kind of it. And just so that you all know too, this presentation, the recording of this webinar will be emailed to you. So you don't have to remember all of this. You can come back to this guide. But we also have articles that highlight all of these different scenarios. So we have a best practices for recording VPK students. So you can find that in our help center as well. So we got a lot of resources to help you out with this. You don't have to just remember how to do it all. So I think that's about it for VPK records. Do we have any questions on reporting VPK students?
We don't have any questions.
All right. Anything that our panelists want to add when it comes to VPK? I know this is new for a lot of our schools. It makes them a little bit nervous. Anything that I'm missing, Jody or Greg?
I can't think of anything.
Oh, sorry, Greg. I'll say from MDE's point of view, we will have a more training on this in the very soon future here regarding VPK and overlapping EC records.
Thank you very much for that, Carrie. All right. Then the last thing that we're going to talk about today is working with those early childhood screening records. So your preschool screening records. You can use JMC Office to record early childhood screening information, even for students not enrolled at your school. After adding the student with the new student wizard, open their record on the View Student Data page and enter the required information on the MARS tab, so the screening record is included in your MARS reporting. So you'll head to the View Student Data page and click the MARS tab to create an early childhood screening record. Step 1, enter the student's name in the Find field to locate their student record. Step 2, click the Edit button to complete the necessary fields. So to make your MARS record a preschool screening record, you'll need to update your grade level. So you want to enter PS to mark the student's record as an early childhood screening record. Your special ed eval status, enter 1 to indicate that special education evaluation has not yet been completed. Your state aid category, you'll want to enter the appropriate state aid category 41 through 45 as required by the MDE. So make sure you have your MARS reference guide handy so you know which state aid category you should put in there. And then your status encode. So enter the appropriate status encodes. So 61 through 66. Again, if you know that, use your MARS reference guide to help you select the right status encode and the right state aid category. And then step 4, click the update button to save the record or the cancel button to discard your changes. Helpful tip, if you're unsure which code to enter, check the MARS reference guide for the full list and definition. So I know I keep my MARS reference guide on my desktop, so I highly recommend you do the same or print it out so that you can go back to that anytime that you need it. So we'll take a live look here at working with early childhood screening records. Okay, so again, first thing that you want to do is you want to enter, if it's a brand new student, you'll have to enter them using the new student wizard. So once they're in your system, back here to grade 0. So once you've got a student in your system, you can see I've already turned this into a preschool screening record, but I would come to my MARS tab. But I'm going to back up just a second here. You'll want to make sure that you're not taking attendance on your preschool screening students. So you'd want to uncheck those check boxes, but you want to have your MARS checkbox checked so that you're sending the record to the state. So make sure this one's checked, but you're not going to want to take attendance for those students. And then you can come to your MARS tab, click Edit. Again, this one would be included because you're sending this to the state. You'll get funding for that preschool screening. Your grade level is PS. You want to have the right state aid category and then the state end code. So what did I say? 61 through 60 through 66, it looks like. I'm going to select 60 here, preschool screening, student, no referral done. Once I have this entered correctly, I'm going to update, and then this record will be included when I send my files to the MDE. Pretty simple, pretty cut and dry. Any questions on creating preschool screening records?
So we have 2 questions. One, I think, came in from Megan a little bit before, but we'll start the preschool school readiness and ECFE. So one question was, how do you enter both school readiness and ECFE? questions. And then the second one was, I have my SR students set up with the days and calendar, should I not?
Okay, so those are great questions. So when it comes, we'll start with the school readiness and ECFE. So what you would do is if you have a student who is in both of those programs, you just need to make sure that when you go to Minnesota, early education, edit student early education, you just need to make sure that you have 2 rows for that student. So if I've got a student here in school readiness and they're also in ECFE, I would just add another row. And then I would edit this record to show the program name, ECFE. And again, you'll enter your registration date, the begin date of the program, and you'll want to come in then and enter your attendance and membership hours once you know them, and then the funding source. So they just need 2 records here on the early education, edit student early education. They don't need 2 lines on their MARS tab, just 2 records here. And then for Megan, I have my SR students set up with days in the calendar. Megan, it's not a bad thing. It's not going to affect anything at all. It might actually make things a little bit easier if you're going to take attendance in JMC for your school readiness kiddos, because if you have days marked that they're not going to be there, they wouldn't show up in teachers' attendance for that day. So it doesn't matter if you've got it done. I wouldn't go through and undo it all. It doesn't matter either way. Like I said, you might have made it easier for taking attendance. Good questions. Any others?
There are no other questions.
All right. Anything else from the panelists? Anything else that we want to add, make sure that people are aware of before we wrap up this webinar? All right. I think we covered it all. Jody, what do you think?
I think we got it. And we got some smart cookies with us because they all know it too.
They do. That's great. All right. And just remember, everybody, preschool reporting, it can be just a little bit tricky and sometimes there's some nuance. So if you're ever having trouble, reach out to us. We're happy to help you. You can reach out to our support. You can reach out to me directly if you want to. And especially as you start doing some of that reporting, if you're getting errors, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help you. We'll wrap this up with some JMC news and upcoming events. We know learning a new system is tough, especially during the busiest time of the year. That's why we created the new User Resource Hub, a one-stop shop filled with training, support, and answers to help you hit the ground running. Whether you're brand new or a longtime partner, this hub is here to save you time and set you up for success. So you can visit that new User Resource Hub. There will be a link to the slides when we send you that recording. You can download the slides. You can click this link right here. But the other place you can find this new User Resource Hub, I'll take you here. I believe that if I go to my homepage here, is that it right there? So there's some articles here, and I think if you just click right here, want to accelerate your JMC onboarding, yes, it's going to take you right here to this new User Resource Hub. So it looks like a lot of you who are joining us today are new to JMC, some of our new schools. This is a great resource for you. It's broken down by user type. So are you admin and front office staff, business office, health office? We've tried to break down some of those essential tasks that you need to know in JMC by who's going to be approaching it, who's going to be tackling that task. So great resource, great collection of all of our onboarding resources. All right. And fully certified and ready for fall. Your fall reporting just got easier. JMC is officially certified in the latest state requirements, so you can start prepping submissions with confidence today. Press play on your regulatory roundup to learn what's new and stay ahead this 2025-26 school year. So you can watch your state's roundup now. They're all on our YouTube training channel. I know everybody here is going to be a Minnesota school, so you can check out that Minnesota state reporting roundup on our YouTube training channel. And getting started is always easier with a guide in hand. The starter guide from our CSS team highlights key steps, time savers, and best practices, all organized by staff roles, so it's easy to share across your district. Inside, you'll also find quick links to training, support, and new user resources, making it a go-to reference. Didn't get the email? You can contact Amy Bemis to be added today. And on behalf of myself, Jody, Carrie, Greg, well, I should say a thank you to Carrie for joining us today. We want to thank you all for attending this webinar, and thank you for choosing JMC.